of that.
Yeah. So I think it's a small benefit to all these.
It's a small benefit to all of them via reducing diffuse pollution.
Yeah.
You know, the things that require financial investment.
Yeah.
Or not just financial investment and also people to engage with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, that's great. That's finished that beast. Lastly, if you could have a think of all the stakeholder groups in the catchment, and we just list them all down. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
See, obviously, it wouldn't be complete. So just whichever ones.
Right. Okay. There's the Ayrshire Rivers Trust. SEPA, farmers, fishermen, general public, forestry, and industrial uses, probably industrial users. I think that probably captures them all.
Yeah. And if you could rate each of them, whether you think they have a small, medium, or large influence on the catchment, and whether that's overall positive or negative. Although, like, lots of people don't feel comfortable seeing a whole stakeholder group that's negative, so you can say kind of plus minus if there's good and bad eggs.
Okay, the Ayrshire Rivers Trust probably have a moderate impact, a medium impact, and I think on the whole it's positive.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the farmers wouldn't think it's positive, but I think they are achieving stuff.
Mm-hmm.
SEPA, likewise.
Mm-hmm.
Farmers have a large influence. Arguably they have the largest influence. And I would say it's probably at best neutral.
Mm-hmm. So
in terms of there's plus and minus.
Yeah.
But yeah, fishermen probably small, and I think they probably do have a positive impact.
Mm-hmm.
The general public small, and I've no idea whether they have a positive impact or not.
Okay.
Forestry medium, and a negative impact, I would suggest.
Mm-hmm.
And industrial users, again, medium, and there could be plus and minus. I think probably forestry could be plus or minus as well, but I don't. Farmers, I think, are more likely to do active mitigation.
Mm-hmm.
Spending money on infrastructure to produce a mitigation, whereas I think forestry probably less so.
Mm-hmm.
And industrial users definitely less so, but then, yeah. Yep.
Okay. That's great. So then I've got two more wee things for us to do, but they'll be quite a lot faster than this one. So the first one of the two is this as a hypothetical trade-off. So what we do is, if you imagine the River Aire catchment and there's absolutely no management there at all, so it's in pristine condition.
Mm-hmm.
So in the Water Framework Directive, ecological status would be a very high reference condition.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we imagine that there's no other management but only agriculture, from no management at all to one which would be the most intensive agriculture you could imagine. So every inch of the catchment is producing the absolute highest yields possible with no regulation. So if we'd imagine that, then there'd be a negative trade-off between the two.
Yeah.
So if you imagine
complete,
trying to get the absolute highest yields and not looking after the ecological status at all. So my first question to you would be whether you think that relationship would be the linear relationship, whether it's kind of at first there's small impacts but then there's a certain threshold and then it levels off again. If you think small increases in agricultural intensity have quite a big impact and then it levels off, or if it's more like this where it's a kind of slow decline to a certain threshold and then kind of sort of just show you all four so you can think about which one kind of most closely resembles how you would think the catchment would respond.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be... I think it's going to be... It's not either of these two.
Mm-hmm.
It's not linear or anything like that. And... I think it's going to be this one.
Mm-hmm. And then if you're not quite sure about the exact shape of that, what you could do now is the confidence intervals, make them greater, or leave them that way, or make them smaller if you're quite sure about that shape.
No, I think it's this shape here.
Oh, sorry. So you said sorry. Okay, so could we make them bigger, leave them like that, or make the confidence intervals smaller?
Yeah, I actually think it's more likely to be this bottom line here that things would be pretty desperate on for most of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so now the actual exercise would be that if these are the different states that just under this trade-off the catchment could be in, depending on how much how intensely you manage it, I'd expect no stakeholder group would be, wanting the catchment to be there because it's very unrealistic.
Yeah.
And nobody would want it to be there either. So they're all on the solid line. They have a preference, an ideal preference of where the catchment should be, how it should be managed, somewhere in the middle, I'd imagine. So now I've got 4 stakeholder groups. So I've got SEPA, academics, farmer representatives, and Scottish Water. If you could place them on here to see where you think their ideal preference is, and if you can make them bigger as well. If you're not quite sure of where they lie, or if you think the stakeholder group itself, they might have quite a broad interest, or maybe different individuals in the group have kind of varying.
That's a really difficult one because the regulator will probably think that it should be possible to achieve this over here.
Yeah.
And that they're actually imagining that it's possible to achieve intensity, because there's intensity without regulation, but if you throw enough money at it, you could be very intensive but still achieve really high ecological status.
Yeah.
So I think the regulator actually wants to be in about here, but do we have to show it on the line?
I suppose then maybe it's more of a, I don't know, is it maybe more of a line like this, if something like that would be possible, or so you would be able to have greater outputs?
But I don't think that's what would happen in practice.
Yeah.
I think that if you took all the regulation out and you were going for intensity, you would find that water quality and ecological status was just dreadful across most of the graph. But I think that the environmental regulator and possibly the catchment scientists
Well, if you to do it right,
probably think, well,
don't have to place them on the line. You can place
I
them.
reckon that they probably think that somewhere in here is achievable. I'm a catchment scientist. Who are the catchment scientists?
So this would be academics that don't work for government organisations, so they just work at universities and they research the catchments, but if they would be given, if they could decide where the catchment should be